I'm with Kylie Ora Lobell. Welcome to Walk-Ins. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of you and first heard you on Rogan, and then I love your writing, and I'm just so happy to be here.
Thank you. I love your writing. I'm excited to talk to you about your book. I have it right here. Everybody
Awesome.
should go check it out. Tell me, really, let's get into it. Why did you write this book? And what does it mean to you to be chosen? You know, it's such an interesting title right away. I'm like, well, what does that mean to her?
Yeah. So I wrote the book because I wanted to tell the world about my conversion journey. I wanted to tell them about Jews. And then, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about us and Jews in general, as you know. And also I was, just grew up in Baltimore. I was an atheist, and I think there's a lot of people right now who are missing faith from their lives. And I really want people, you don't have to convert or anything, but just to believe in God. Like, believing in God, again, gave me so much hope. And I think that's what a lot of people, especially in America, are missing right now. To be chosen, that's a misnomer. People think that, the chosen people means that we think we're better than everyone else. We look down on everybody else. But the way that I heard it was God shopped around the Torah to all the nations, and the Jews were the only one that wanted to take it on. And so we were responsible for spreading God around the world through Abraham, monotheism. And so we chose to take the Torah on, and our role is to show that God exists to the world, and you don't have to be like us, you don't have to be Jewish, but just to believe in God and lead your life in a good way.
And were you raised religious, or were you an atheist, or what role did religion have in your life before you converted? And how old were you when you converted?
I was 26.
And how long did it take?
It took me 5 years, which is not typical. Usually it can take like a year or more, but Judaism is always more complicated to join than other religions for various reasons. Like, for instance, we were persecuted for thousands of years, so we're a little bit more skeptical when people want to come in and say, I want to be Jewish. Some other religion, you say one line and you're with that religion, and just being Jewish means taking on a whole bunch of things. Kosher, you keep Shabbat, which means you don't check your phone or drive for 25 hours every week, and it's a lot. I grew up in a secular Christian home in Baltimore, kind of like typical Americans, did Christmas, did Easter. The only religious person was my Catholic grandmother. She would try to teach me things, but it all seemed pretty like dark. I'd go into her house, there's pictures of Jesus on the cross and he's bleeding out, and she'd take me to church and it was the same thing. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I learned that if I was not baptized, I was going to hell, I would learn. And I did like church because of the movie Sister Act, because I get to hear my favorite songs in there and sing along. I didn't like sitting in the pews, and I was like uncomfortable. And so I became an atheist. And that's kind of how I led my life from age 12, when I thought I knew everything because I was a teenager, until like age 21, I started believing in God again.
And what made you start believing in God again?
So what made me stop believing in God is innately I thought God existed. I would pray to him, pictured him like any kid, like a guy in the sky with a beard. And then when I prayed that my parents wouldn't get divorced, they got divorced anyway. So I said, okay, prayer doesn't work. My grandma died. She was my best friend. Even though I prayed she wouldn't die, again, that hurt my faith. And then like at summer camp, this girl goes, well, I don't believe in God. And I was like, yeah, it seems stupid. Like all these stories of Noah's Ark and everything. And why aren't there miracles today? This is made up. The religion is the opiate of the masses, and you think you're a teenager. So then fast forward, I'd always had Jewish friends, dated Jewish guys, and I went to a place called Chabad for a Friday night dinner with my boyfriend, who's now my husband. And we went because we were broke, and they are like Jews don't proselytize outside of Judaism, but they do that to Jews, like try to make them more connected. So Chabad is like a Hasidic organization. You see them out there on the streets asking, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? I was at this dinner. They were talking Torah, like a lot of it started to make sense to me. Everyone's sitting around. It's like a diverse group of Jews, like, some guy in orange glasses. I was in Williamsburg, so like hipsters, and then like this Orthodox family and the rabbi. And as I was just sitting there, I felt this warmth in my chest that like melted over body. And then I was just like, this is God. Like right away, I felt it. Never felt that before, never felt it since then. And so from that moment, I was like, okay, maybe God exists. And then the more I learned about God through Judaism, that made sense to me. So it was kind of like logic-based and feeling-based.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we're having this conversation today because I was in one of my 12-step meetings, and my path back to God has been very intertwined with sobriety because it's so part and parcel of 12-step. The brilliance of 12-step is God as you understand him. But for me, it was, I had just a hard time even hearing the word God when I went into the program. And on my last meeting, we were talking about step 2, which is came to believe that a power within ourselves could restore us to sanity. And I still struggle with, I've never had a problem accepting the idea of God. Like my heart beats without me thinking about it. There's so much beauty and synchronicity in the universe that is unexplainable, that it doesn't even need to be a God in the sky. It could be in my hippie days, even when I was like an atheist, I still believed in Gaia or whatever hippie stuff worked for me. I always say there's like this indefeatable woo girl in me that is, even if I'm not believing in God, G-O-D, I'm believing in more of a like indigenous kind of, like the pagan stuff, whatever. I had no problem with that. I smoked way too much weed to not believe that there was something bigger than me. But the belief that that thing cared about me is really like the big disconnect. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, whether they are aware of it or not. It's like one thing to believe in God. And then, like you say, there's all these things that test your faith. And the one that everybody always uses, like child cancer. How can God create child cancer? And if there is a God, why would these people suffer in the way that they do? And so it does a lot to kind of intellectually push back against the idea that this God cares about the people first, second, an individual person. So I still think, I was thinking about this in the meeting, like I still think that I struggle with that concept intellectually. It's not something, even though I've had a lot of reasons to believe more and more in God. It's still like God cares. He seems kind of busy to be caring about an individual. What are some of the things that you really struggled with when you got back into religion after not having it and having I think a lot of people struggle with these very same, I mean, the kids have cancer thing is like almost a meme. It's so prevalent in the atheist discourse.
Yeah, so there's a lot of thoughts I'm having. First, we do believe that God is the creator, the king, reverence, high in the sky. But then we also have the fatherly relationship with him, or motherly, or whatever. He doesn't have a gender, so it doesn't matter what you think. Like, he's right here all the time. So Judaism does a lot of things to bring God down to earth, bring him into our lives. We say a blessing before and after everything we eat. We say a blessing after the bathroom, before we go to bed, after we go, when we wake up in the morning. Thank you, God, for bringing me to life again. That is really an important part of Judaism, because to me, I don't understand so many things. And I think it's like the way I used to think was very small, where I heard this once, they were interviewing an NFL player, and he said like similar things, like God's high in the sky. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't have the capacity to care about me. It's like, how do you know? Like we really don't know like what God is capable of. And I absolutely believe he is in the small details, and he's also high in the sky in doing that. The bad things happening to good people is the number one question. Judaism has a number of different answers for it, and I'm not a rabbi, but the way I understand it is that there is a greater plan. We don't know what it is, and there are two worlds also, and we believe in recycled souls. And So some people think that's nonsense and it's just things we say to make ourselves feel better. Like we especially struggle with the Holocaust and October 7th and things like that. And whenever anyone tries to connect the dots and be like, well, the Holocaust had to happen so that the state of Israel can be established, I'm like, no, you're not God and you don't know. So really, it's just like, you believe that God exists and that you are not completely in control of your life. I mean, I never had problems with like drinking or really like for a little bit, or like weed. I have problems with food. I have problems with anxiety, depression, and control. And the number one switch that I made in my head when coming back to God was that I am not completely in control of my life. And that comforts me, because when you think you're completely in control, then if a bad thing happens, it's on you. And you're like, oh, I guess I deserve this because I did something wrong. But with God, you can just kind of let it go. And you can be like, I'm late to my meeting and it seems like so chaotic and I'm anxious. And you just say, no, I'm meant to be late to this meeting for some reason. I love it in life when you can look back and see like this happened, it led me here. But the faith comes in and the trust comes in. They're both essential when you can say all these things happen and I still don't know why. And I really won't know why until I die, probably. But in Judaism, we have emunah, which is faith, and bitachon, which is trust. And I love this way it was explained to me. So a burglar is going in to burglarize someone's house, and he has faith that he's going to be able to steal from people and God won't let him get hurt. If the burglar also had trust, bitachon is what we call it, then he wouldn't burglarize them in the first place. So it's really essential to have both, and whatever is going on in your life to try to figure out what God is doing to guide you. Like I was pushing on all the wrong doors for so many years. And then I just find that things go smoother when you listen to your gut and you try to figure out what God wants from you. Like for instance, I was a workaholic and I was going and still I could work every single day. I wouldn't make that much money. Once I started keeping Shabbat and I said, no, sunset, I'm turning off everything, I started like making more money. Or like when you take care of yourself and when you like go out for a run instead of sitting down to work, like that's, if you feel like that's what you should be doing in that moment, do it. That's like your godly instinct and you should always listen to it. So I hope I've explained it. It gets very philosophical very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want to talk to you about a lot of that. I think your story is in the book, and so I don't want to burn your whole story because I want people to go read the book, So I'm interested in the story, but I'm more interested in like the struggles that you had to contend with when you were. I know your husband is a big part of your story and converting and what struggles you had to overcome. I was joking with my friends in actually LA, the Schreiers, who are like good friends of mine, and we would always often go to Shabbat at their home, and I would say to Zach, like being Jewish seems like so much work. Like I've thought for 20 years, I've thought about converting because for whatever reason, I mean, it goes so far back actually with me. It's almost hysterical. I was in a private Catholic school with nuns, and they asked us all when we were kids, they were like, oh, who's celebrating Christmas? And all the kids raised their hands. And then they said, who's celebrating Hanukkah? I don't know why they even asked this question. And I was the only one who raised my hand. And so they had to like call my parents, and they were like, Bridget thinks she's Jewish. But they were like, Bridget, are you guys Jewish? And they were like, no. They're like, well, Bridget thinks she is. And then when I was working with this autistic kid, his whole family was Jewish and I was his aide. So then because I was his aide, I was exposed to every holiday. There were years where I spent more time doing Jewish holidays, going to the camps and like the kids' camps and so I just had to, and I would get like chills and cry when I would hear the prayers. And it was very strange, even at like 19, 20 years old, not having had really any exposure to it. And I do actually think that's something that's pretty interesting about Judaism in general, is that if you live in New York, LA, Miami, certain places, like you're gonna be exposed to it. But Americans in general, like they're not that exposed to Judaism. I think it's probably the least exposure to anything really that you would have in America. It would maybe be Judaism because it's just not prevalent all over America. Has that kind of been your experience?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Baltimore, so also like grew up in a very Jewish place. And then I
Yeah.
just thought that Judaism was bagels, Woody Allen, and anxiety. And then like it's
You
actually
mean,
like
yeah.
so much more. Like we didn't even invent bagels. Anxiety is like for Orthodox Jews are like some of the least anxious people I've ever met. So it's like all just pop culture stuff. Yes, like when other Jews have said to me, yeah, I went to the South and they asked me where my horns were, or like my brother-in-law is a chiropractor and like the only place to go to chiropractic school is in upstate New York. And this guy's like, hey, you want to go out shooting squirrels on Saturday? And he's like, oh, I can't. I do the Sabbath. I do Shabbat. And he's like, are you one of them Judim? And I'm like, what? But yeah, when I lived in right outside of Orlando for 3 weeks, and this woman said to me once casually without knowing I was Jewish, she's like, yeah, my dad would always Jew people down. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just a completely, when you're not exposed to something, you're able to like other it. You're able to be like, oh, they're bad or something. Like, no, that's not. When you grow up in a more diverse place, I'm going to get all like live here, but it's true. Like you do like appreciate people more. Like I grew up in Baltimore. My friends group was like Asian, Black, Hispanic, white, like everything. And so that exposure is what makes people, I think, less hateful. But when it's like othered and you have no idea, then that's where hate grows because you're just like, I don't know. I have no idea. We're only like 0.02% of the population in America. And then there's only like 15 million Jews total in the world. And I know some people think there's like 500 million or a billion of us. Like that's another like lie that proliferates. No, it's very tiny and very misunderstood.
What's one thing you've noticed about your body changing as you've gotten older? How has it affected your approach to health or recovery? Turns out the secret to healing, recovery, and resilience isn't just luck, it's stem cells. These are your body's built-in repair crew, but as we age, that system slows down. Fewer cells, weaker signals, slower recovery. This is exactly why Qualia Stem Cell was created. Your cells are powerful. Make sure they stay that way with Qualia's innovative new stem cell formula. Think of stem cells as your body's repair crew. Qualia Stem Cell helps them do their job better. It's not actually stem cells, guys. It's just something that supports the stem cells you already have. It provides stem cell support for your body's existing stem cell system for healing, recovery, and renewal. So to be clear, Qualia Stem Cell does not provide stem cells, you absolute lunatics. You don't have to accept slowing down. Help your body renew itself by reactivating the systems that keep you moving, healing, and thriving with Qualia Stem Cell formula. You only need to take it 4 days a month, preserving your body's regenerative capacity over time. So if you've ever felt like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to, whether it's after a tough workout, getting sick, or just the wear and tear of life, not sleeping enough, whatever, this is for you. Qualia Stem Cell was designed to support your body's natural repair systems, helping you heal, recover, and keep going strong. And right now you can try it for up to 50% off at qualialife.com/Bridget. And here's the bonus. Use the code Bridget for an additional 15% off. That's QUALIA life.com/Bridget. Your body's built to repair itself. Qualia just helps it do that better. And a big thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode. Yeah, that's a crazy thing. It's one of those things I'd like to go do like a street interview of where you're just asking people randomly like how many it's always interesting too with and part of that is I think because in entertainment there has been a lot of representation, like you said, these like tropes of the anxious Jew and Woody Allen, and so there's been enough representation that it would probably lead one to think there is a larger population of Jews in the world than there are. The same thing happens with when you ask people about LGBTQ. And also, it's the same thing that happens when you see even like how many Black people have been shot by the police. You know, the media, like the way that these things are presented to us in media, give us such false impressions of numbers. But it did seem like when I was talking to my friends, you know, and this is something you touch on in your book, and I love, like Zach was saying the thing about that he loves about Judaism, even though I was like, it seems like a lot of effing work, is that it is that work and that it's inconvenient. And he made this point to me that has resonated for probably 6 or 7 years now, that those are the things that matter. That's the stuff that really has meaning. Showing up week after week when it's not convenient, when you don't feel like it, for your community, with your family. That is the stuff that is meaning making and gives your life. And actually, often the more inconvenient it is, the more it means something, because you have to go to that effort and you've got to show up no matter what.
It really relates to sobriety, I think. Again, I can't speak for the sober movement, but like when I try to keep a diet, just like, let's say, veganism or not eating bread, I always fail. But I've kept the kosher diet all these years because I believe in a higher power and a higher purpose. Whereas maybe with sober, it's similar. Like you have that higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, and it's like you just kind of, it's like you can trust fall back into it, and you can like, it's just a higher purpose for you than like, I just want to be sober for whatever other reason. Like, does that ring true at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a big lifestyle change. So this is what my husband and I were talking about too. He's like, I feel like you just kind of need to be born into this, you know. You've got to like know the prayers, and you kind of learn Hebrew because you just recite the stuff. And when you're a little kid, your brain is a sponge, and you get used to keeping kosher and Shabbat, and all of it becomes kind of second nature. So it's not this huge lift because it's just the lifestyle that you lead. But if you're converting to Judaism, it's like you've got to completely rearrange your kitchen, and it's a massive lifestyle change. And in that way, I think it is like sobriety, because I mean, for me, I was smoking weed from the minute I woke up and drinking every day, and and then all of the other things that go along with that. It's just like so much of Judaism, it becomes ritual, and it is those rituals that if you're raised with as a child, they're very easy to kind of fall back into. I know many people who, it sounds like even your husband, who were raised, he was raised with all of the traditions and everything, right? Or was he raised? Yeah. So even when they go back, it's like still in your it's like still in your, you know, deep buried in your brain. It's like when I go to a Catholic mass, I still know all the stuff because I did it when I was little, and those rituals are like deeply ingrained in my muscle memory. And that's the hard thing when you get sober, is to undo all those rituals. I would wake up and drink coffee, and then I would have a cigarette. Like that's why quitting anything is so hard for people, especially behavioral addictions like gambling or eating are even more challenging than taking away a substance, because those are even more deeply ingrained in just like it's like a behavioral process that you have to try and undo. And I think the reverse is true when you're converting, or any religion really. It's just it's all like habit building. It's really just creating new habits and new rituals. And with sobriety, it wasn't necessarily that I was doing it for God, like you explained you were doing with keeping kosher, because that's honestly the hardest thing for me about even the thought of converting, is the kitchen and kosher and all of that, because I'm Italian and love meat and cheese together as one.
Yeah.
And so those are much harder things for me to conceive of than like yeah, God would have to be pretty big for me to give that up, I guess. And that doesn't seem like it has a hugely, like drinking and drugs and all those things were having such a massively negative consequence on my life that God helped support me through that process. And there were many times that were unexplainable things happened where I wanted to drink or use, and it did feel like a bigger hand in interrupted that. But I don't know that I really wanted to know who I was without all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Whereas I feel like converting to Judaism is adding more God. You know, like it's like you're adding even, it would be like if I converted to Judaism, I would be adding even, again, not against this, but I would be adding even more God. Whereas with substances, I felt like I was taking something away to reveal the God that, like, to reveal God. It was interrupting my relationship with God.
I love that. You got clarity. I felt the same thing, like when I overcame my food addiction before I got pregnant and was anemic and everything. But I started being like vegan and sugar-free and everything, and I got that clarity. And I totally understand that. And that's a beautiful thing. And with the rituals, yeah, there's a lot of rituals in Judaism. And I think rituals are a good thing because they keep it up. Like a lot of Christians, I have a podcast also where I talk to converts because it's just the most fascinating stories. And a lot of Christians say to me, I'm like, what did you do in terms of being Christian? They're like, oh, we just went to church. I'm like, but what else? Like, what else keeps you connected? And I think that the reason you see like Islam, for example, is growing is because there's so many rituals and people like rules to follow. Like you see these British girls and they're dressed like not so, in Judaism, we say not so sneas, not so modest. They're kind of trashy. And then they're like doing these videos like, would you wear the hijab for a day? And they're like, yeah, sure. And, you know, they put it on, they're like, oh, I feel so great. And like, people like these rules, people like things to follow. And that's like a reason for all the rituals. That's why I did it slowly and slowly took it on, because if there are people who like get really into religion or like, especially Judaism, and then they do everything and then they always like boomerang back. They're like, okay, it's too intense now. So you do have to do it very slowly. And kosher was not so hard for me because I come from white people and it's not like we have great cuisine like Italians. You know, it was just like take out from Whole Foods. So like my family's not big eaters. Like I feel like they just came here for Shabbat and we're like all about food. Like Jews talk about food while eating food. Like it's just all about food. So, but the biggest deal for me was just not checking my phone on Shabbat. That was 100% the hardest thing. And I'll tell you a funny story is I couldn't put it down until one Saturday I'd written, do you remember XO Jane? It was like from Jane magazine, they relaunched it. So I wrote the story. They were only paying like $50. I wrote the story about my conversion. I put a picture of myself and it was Shabbat and I was checking my phone. And I got hundreds of hateful comments on this quote unquote feminist website. They're like, why are you wearing a coat and a dress? And then someone's like, it's Israel. The weather is weird. Like, don't bash her for that. Or someone's like, I took conversion classes with her. She's not actually like into this. And like just the most horrible comments ever. And I was telling Danny, my husband, and he goes, just turn your phone off. It's Shabbat. Like if you weren't on your phone right now, you would not be feeling this not like this, like anxious and everything. Yeah. And I realized that I was like, the world goes on when you don't check your phone. Like, and if there's really big news, you will hear about it. I was walking home from synagogue, what was it, 2 years ago now? And my neighbor's like, oh, they tried to kill Trump. And I was like, oh, really? That's horrible. Is he okay? Okay. And, you know, I was walking around, there's a Jewish holiday called Shavuot. That's when we receive the Torah on Sinai. So every year we celebrate that. I don't check my phone for 2 days. And it was also when George Floyd happened and they were like burning down downtown LA. I was walking with my baby and then someone comes up to me. They're like, there's a curfew now. You got to go inside. So like, okay. I was like, I don't know why there's smoke in the air and helicopters everywhere, but okay. Like that's another control thing. Like you going on X every single day, every single minute, that really doesn't change anything. It just makes it just gives you more anxiety and everything. So that's like just one of the beautiful things about Shabbat, especially now. From when I started my conversion in 2010 until now, the phone has become so much more integrated. And I'm sure that soon Elon is going to create some chip that we put in us and we're on all the time. And Judaism is going to have to figure that out. Maybe we're going to have to opt out of that chip. I don't know. But that's just like in today's day and age, the phone is making things so much worse and creating so much violence and division. And it's just, I'm so happy to dip out for one day a week. It's amazing.
Yeah, I do love Shabbat. I would like to practice it. It was tough before because we would launch a dumpster fire on Fridays and I would always try and be in the chat to promote it, but I don't really have that excuse anymore and like I'd have to be connected to like, oh, what are we going to title it in the card and all that stuff. And now that that's not there, I try really hard. Like Sunday is my sacred family day. I don't book anything for it. I try very hard to just like cook and food prep and because I was raised Catholic, it's still like those old habits die hard. And we've talked about going back to church and I don't know. It's so funny how I know that in sobriety, the whole idea basically is that it's like there's sobriety and then there's sobriety. Like there's physical sobriety. And then you get, and I always say the two levels of kind of getting sober, the like physical detox, one thing, getting sober, very hard. The craving. Then there's the emotional sobriety, and that goes on forever. Like and it is entirely, and the less attention that you pay to your emotional sobriety, aka your spiritual condition, your connection to God, the further away you generally get away from sobriety, and it will end up usually kind of in a relapse or you'll end up kind of dry. I've been dry and that is hell. And it is always the same story. Like you get busy and you're too busy for this and that. And then you are too busy to do a program. And I just start feeling like I've recently have kind of turned back. This is the amazing thing about 12-step is that you can go, like it's always there, much like God and religions. And I was like, oh, I have no practice. Like when I got sober and like you said, to go back to the idea of these ritual, I would wake up, I would meditate, I would say a prayer, the 3rd-step prayer every morning. It was just a way to connect to God. We had like this little, it's just like everything starts to become kind of background and you get busy. It's the same story you hear all the time. Life gets busy, it gets good, you get disconnected. And I don't know. It's like I do think you're right. The reason people are, when I was in rehab, there was a woman who was Muslim and it was amazing how quickly that shit spread in our rehab even because it was, like you said, a ritual. People were curious about it. She seemed to kind of have some kind of peace that all of the restless kind of, it was really fascinating to see how just having one person who maintained or was reconnecting to her own rituals from when she was young was really compelling to everybody around in a situation where we're essentially locked up and completely powerless.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with Islam, they bowed down. That's like, it humbles you. Mm-hmm. We do that on Yom Kippur. I was told once by a rabbi that Judaism was doing that, then Islam started doing it, so we had to differentiate ourselves again. But on Yom Kippur, we do bow down. We still do that. But yeah, I really think you need rituals. And like when I was trying to get quote unquote sober from like junk food, I'd replace it by going on a hike. And just like when you achieve that, it is the best feeling in the world. But I don't know. Like I've never been, I smoked weed in college and like drank a little bit. So my only struggles have been with food, and Judaism did not help that, but you need food to sustain. You don't need drugs and alcohol, you need food. So that's why it's like really difficult. But yeah, that's very interesting. And
seems like a crazy time to convert to Judaism.
There's been so many since after October 7th.
More people converting?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I want to be part of this. Like, I don't know. There's just, I think people see how resilient the Jewish people are. Like, there's that Mark Twain quote from back in the day we always like to quote about how, like, the Jewish people are eternal. And anti-Semites twist this, but like, we were kicked out of 109 countries or whatever. And there was like, well, why is that? Because they're horrible. But to me, that's like, oh, they're so resilient and strong. And like, my husband's grandmother, may she rest in peace, she snuck out after the Anschluss, which was when the Nazis came to Austria. You know, she always said she was like walking on the wall, like balancing on it. And then when she turned around and saw them marching, she lost her balance and she never regained it. Her grandmother was sent to the gas chambers. They're Turkish, they're Sephardic Jews, there's Ashkenazi and Sephardic. So they were Sephardic Turkish Jews. So her brother escaped to Turkey. And since she had blonde hair and blue eyes, she escaped on a train full of Nazis to London and then eventually to Scotland. But I'm just like, there's so many stories like that throughout Jewish history, not just the Holocaust. And that's just a miracle. Like, God said to Abraham, look up at the stars. This is your people. We're numerous. So the Jewish like challenge is, you know, all these bad things happen. How could you still have your faith? But if you look back at history, the Jews have never gone away and we never will go away because we have our mission, which is to be the torchbearers of the world and to bring God's light and love into this world and show people that God exists. That's it. Again, you don't have to be Jewish. Like, you can be, we have something called the 7 Noahide laws. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe that, you know, Jews should follow the Torah, 613 commandments. Can't do all of them because we don't have our temple. But the non-Jews are just supposed to do the 7 Noahide laws, and they're just basic laws, like kind of like the 10 Commandments. Don't rip the limb off a live animal because that's cruel. No adultery, no murder, treat your neighbor with respect. It's basically just that, and then you're good. So there's a lot more for Jews. We have a lot more to do.
Yeah, you guys are good. It's like that idea of a busy mind is a healthy mind. Has it helped you with your anxiety and depression and all that stuff that you mentioned?
Yeah, and I would never simplify it and be like, oh, if you pray or you become religious, like that's going to help your anxiety and depression. Like, I had it mild where, you know, I only had to take like Zoloft or Prozac at a certain point. I never had bipolar or anything like that. But combining it with talk therapy and then also believing in God and having that higher power, again, it's like the diet thing. You know, it's hard to keep a diet unless there's like God behind it. So it was hard like to do therapy and be okay. But once I coupled that with also believing in God and God has a plan, then it became much easier. And, you know, today, a central tenet of Judaism is l'chaim, to life. We're all about life. That's why we don't mix meat and milk, because we don't mix life and death. Like, it's all about life. We escaped from Egypt because they would mix life and death. You know, you're buried with everything. You have to take your riches with you. It's like, no, that's Jews, when they die, are wrapped in a simple like shroud, it's called, or whatever, and buried directly in the ground in Israel. And that's it. You don't take anything with you. So there's a very distinct, you know, also in the mourning period, we're not allowed to mourn forever. We're not allowed to grieve forever. There's a distinct period of Shiva, which is the first week, and that's very intense. And then the next month, and then over the next 11 months, that's your period, and then it's over. And it's very intense for those 11 months. But then once it's over, and you can't grieve for after. You have to go on. You have to live your life. And I just love that. Like, if I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, I'd be like, oh, I'm going to have a horrible day. Like, I'm in a bad mood. But if I do that now, I say like, look, I'm glad I'm awake. And maybe this morning is horrible, but I'm not going to let that be my day. I have to live. Like, God restores you every single night. When you go to sleep, when you wake up, you die a little bit at night. That's what we believe in Judaism. And then God breathes life back into you and you say, thank you. Thanks for getting me up again. So if God put you here and you're still alive, you still have a purpose. Even if everything in your life is going to crap, like, you still have a purpose. So,
do you think that people feel, you know, I was writing about this morning, just how I feel bad for I mean, everyone really, but I feel bad for the younger generations because it feels like they're just so like irony poisoned and nihilistic. And I don't blame them. They didn't ask to be born into this time. And it's a strange dichotomy of kind of things being like we're on the precipice of it feels like extra worldly exploration, scientific breakthroughs that we can't even conceive of, potentially not even dying. You know, I always joke like my kid's gonna be like, back in my day, like people used to die. You know, like what idiots
San
they
Junipero.
were.
You know, San Junipero from Black Mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I feel like it does feel, you know, I see these kids like in the streets protesting and they feel, I remember being like super lost. I spent so much of my life being lost that I can really identify with wanting to belong to something, A, and B, wanting to find like meaning in life and I don't know that they have much to kind of turn to. I don't know. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that it doesn't seem like the younger people turning to religion? Do you know, have numbers on this? I know they've said like Gen Z is becoming more Christian, but then when you really look into the numbers, it's like, are they actually becoming more Christian, or was that like a moment post Charlie Kirk? Or
I mean, it's anecdotal, and I wouldn't conflate like joining TPUSA with being religious or anything. I mean, for sure, these protests and everything are their new religion. Human beings like to be part of something. They like to be part of religion. And so they make that their religion. Veganism is a religion. You know, like all the Free Palestine stuff, that's their religion. I think the religion should be God. I think this is a false idol of, you know, it's a cult, honestly. And it's always a new thing. They're always jumping around to new things. Now it's ice out, and it's all like it's good to have an opinion and protest and do free speech, yes, but it really becomes like people are dying for it, sacrificing their lives for it, and that's not good at all. Anecdotally, I've seen that Gen Z has a very good head on their shoulders. Like this teenager said to me, they're forcing AI down our throats and I hate it and all my friends hate it. And I think back to what you were saying earlier. AI. Yeah, I hate AI. Back to what you were saying earlier about the media pushing things about, you know, Jews or other demographics, LGBT and things like that, where you think it's much bigger than it is. Like, I also think that these things are pushed on us. Like with AI, you know, we can totally fight back and not give into it. Like it's being forced on us, or like godlessness is being forced on us. No, like you can just bow out. Like a lot of people are bowing out of like mainstream media because they don't like what it's saying. Like I keep seeing articles like married couples are in open relationships, having multiple partners. And it's like, we all know this is a bad idea. Stop pushing it on us. Like that's totally godless. And not to sound conspiratorial, but I do believe we're in a fight of good versus evil. I do think there are evil forces pushing things that are very ungodlike. And then you have, I pay much more attention to the right because it's very interesting to me. But you have forces like, you know, Tucker Carlson, who's the worst one because on the outside he seems put together, but on the inside he fought that demon in bed and the demon won for sure. He says he's Christian. He's not Christian. He believed in the God of the Grateful Dead, from what I read. Like he's saying he's Christian, and then he does everything that's not Christian-like or Candace Owens or whatever. So they're coming to us and they're saying, I'm one thing. If you just see the fallout from that guy, I'll just call him, you know, he says he's Catholic and going to church, but on the inside, he's doing all these horrible things. So we also have to, you know, with the younger generation, they have to have good people to look up to and not false idols, not people saying they're like a reverend and then acting a different way, like people who are actually good. And I really think that there's more good than bad in the world, and that what you see online, like the bad is just so much louder. Like the algorithm rewards negativity. The algorithm rewards evil. And you just have to like step outside of it, touch grass, as they say, and go and interact with people every day. And most people are not hateful. Most people are not racist or discriminating or whatever. Like it's much more peaceful. So Gen Z, I have a lot of hope for them. Like I think that and we're also going through like a period where things are changing very quickly. Like it was shoved on millennials to go to college, for instance. And then we see like that doesn't work. Like AI is taking our jobs. So like, don't make the same mistake with Gen Z. Like tell them they don't have to go to college. They don't have to do exactly what we say. Let them find their own way and let them figure it out. And in Judaism, a lot of post-denominational stuff is happening. And I think that's beautiful, where you don't necessarily have to go to like a certain type of synagogue. You can just create these beautiful experiences with your friends and do like Friday night dinner, for instance. And then if you like it, keep doing it, maybe take on more. But that's just so beautiful to me, that you don't have to like go into an institution now and pay membership dues. And that's just not what this generation wants. But I'll take like Millie Bobby Brown for an example. Like people are like, oh, she's only 20 and she adopted a kid. And no, I think that's beautiful. Like she has so much money, like go for it. Like you can afford a nanny even if she screws up. But people like having farms and I have chickens. So like when I see like young people like, I'm moving to a farm, I'm like, that's a great idea. Like go and be with nature, you know? So hopefully it's becoming like more traditional again, because shoving these, you know, AI and like social media and everything down people's throat, there's a backlash, thankfully.
Yeah, there does seem to be a kind of checking out, a return to more of a simple in-person life. And I know you've written about how you are an introvert and your husband's an extrovert, correct?
Yeah, I'm like, it's kind of weird. I kind of changed after COVID because I got so horribly depressed not being around people that I was like, I gotta be around people now. He's like an extrovert, like when he's on stage, and then like at a party, he's an introvert, which is like a lot of comedians. Like if you have a mic and there's people in the audience, then yeah, you're fine. But if you have to just like be out in the wild, and no, he doesn't like that.
Yeah, it's funny having that balance. My husband's like a very, I need people, I get energy from them, and I'm always like running around, going here, there, and everywhere. And he's definitely the one that I have to kind of coax to come along but he has taught me so much about what it's like to be an introvert. I really had and my cousin Maggie too. Like I didn't really understand how taxing it is for an introvert to be around other people. I just thought like they were babies. I was like, come on. I just thought like they didn't like people or something, but it really is like something fundamentally completely different, where I'm like a battery that gets charged around people, and it is draining for my husband, and he has to kind of recharge after. Like, I guess we're taking from all the introverts who are forced to go out in the world or something.
Yeah, it's good that you're opposite though. Like my husband's ADHD, I'm the most non-ADHD. When you have two ADHD people in a marriage, it's a disaster. Like he's or I always compare it, like someone's holding a balloon, like I'm holding the balloon and he's floating in the sky and I'm like the one on the ground. Like, okay, let's get back to reality. But it's good to have both. It's good to have those big world-changing ideas from the ADHD person and then the person who actually does stuff on the ground, you know?
The person who actually does stuff. That's probably how my husband sees himself too. He's always like, it's like living with, like, he's like, is there like a college student who lives over here? He's like, your side of the bed is like a dorm room. Like, what's happening? And his side is just like army. Looks like I'm married to like this and I've always been like a little bit of a nutty professor and kind of scattered. And it's hard for me to, like, he's very much like systems, not goals. Like everything, you know, functions from ritual. He doesn't really believe in like even New Year's resolutions. He's like, just make up your mind and commit to something and keep doing it. And I'm like, all right, what's like the big, you know, the big audacious goals, and how are we gonna And then, 1 month in, I'm like, well, I failed. He's like, I told you this was gonna happen.
1 month into New Year's resolutions.
He's
You're
just like,
saying,
okay,
yeah.
Bridget, like, yeah, sure. He's like, you just have to start stacking different habits. All you're talking about is habits. He's like, you're not. That's all this stuff is. Like New Year resolutions and whatever. It's just changing habits. And so just do little micro change. He's very like, systems, not goals. Just like figure out how you're going to change that system. And I'm just like, we're doing it all, tomorrow. And then ADHD or whatever. I've never been diagnosed, but I know that in our dumpster fire room, my editor and I are like herding cats, like just to get our attention to focus. And he's also just like creative and has lots of ideas and it's kind of all over the place. Like if the two of us, Maggie's always like, guys, like what? And the like ongoing joke is like, okay, so what are we going to cover? We'll be like talking for an hour and it's like, all right, what are we covering? You've all heard me screaming women for years now, and I'm a big advocate for women in general and women's health in particular. That's why I love Quest's line of medical tests specifically focused on women's health issues. They offer a basic women's health profile test that gives you a snapshot of your current health and wellness, women's hormone tests designed to identify imbalances associated with various health conditions, and specific tests for fertility, thyroid function, and even your menopause stage. This is all such important knowledge for women to have because it can affect the way you work out. It can affect what you should be eating. And just now they're starting to really realize how much all of these hormones play into us losing weight, keeping bone density. All of this information is so important to you. Your results are delivered online quickly and discreetly, and you get all of this information without a doctor's visit. So prioritize your health and visit questhealth.com today. Use the code WALKINS25 to get 25% off and find answers to the multitude of health questions you may have. That's questhealth.com and use the code WALKINS25 for 25% off. Link in the description below.
My husband went to the Edinburgh Fringe, which is like the biggest arts festival in the world, and a lot of Fleabag was launched there, Alex Edelman, so a lot of comedians do it. And I'm like, oh, you should hire our friend Genevieve Joy, who's also a comedian, to be your joke coach. So she's also ADHD, even worse. So I'd walk in after 2 hours, I'm like, what jokes did you write? They're like, oh, we were just like on Instagram. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys can't work together. No. But yeah, you're probably ADHD, but I love ADHD people. They're the ones who change the world. It's you're creative and you really do radical things, and that's what changes things. So you just need people like me or your husband to like get you to actually accomplish those SMART goals.
Yeah, he's always like, come on, Bridget, what's a tangible thing? Like, what's the next right step for those? How did your relationship with him kind of affect your conversion?
He didn't want to do it because he grew up with it. He had that baggage. He got kicked out of Jewish school for bad grades in secular studies. They were trying to be like the Harvard of Jewish schools, and then no one would believe him that he got kicked out for that. They thought he would usually get kicked out for like drugs or like violence, like something crazy. So nowhere would take him. He ended up at a school that was like reject Jews. He called it like for misfit Jews. Like he would be praying and then they would throw spitballs at him. And then there was this one kid, Vadim, he was born with one arm, this Russian kid. And he would take like a plastic arm because he got all these plastic arms because he'd always need a new like arm, and he'd put them all in his locker. So his locker was filled with prosthetic arms, and he would clip the little school bus, and one time he clipped the school bus, those little like windows on the short bus, they would also be on a short bus. And he put it out the window with a Glad bag full of marinara sauce. And when the teacher was on the Long Island Expressway, he released it. It went onto the car behind them, cracked the windshield. The car like spun out of control. They pulled over, and it was hours long because it looked like, an arm had fallen off and there was blood everywhere.
Oh no.
And this was the kind of kids he was dealing with. So then he ended up in public school. He's like, I can't be in this crazy environment. And then he ended up being a comedian. And if you're a comedian, you can't do Shabbat because, you're back in the day, at least club books you your Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
And so like we moved out to LA because Ralphie May of blessed memory gave him a job. And, he was, as he was starting to get back into religion with me, we would like go and do Shabbat dinner at the Hilton or whatever, the Holiday Inn, and then walk over and he's like performing for a bunch of drunks at the Ontario or Brea Improv. And he's just like, this feels weird. I'm like, I know. And like, you're in two different worlds. So he like eventually started remembering what he loved about it and like made his own way, which wasn't tied to the baggage of people, because people make mistakes. And a lot of people leave religion because of people. They don't leave it because of God. They still believe in God, but someone wronged them and they're like, that's it, I'm out. So he started, like doing things that he loved again, like praying and remembering like, how it made him feel. So eventually he like came back to it. And nowadays, you could be a comedian with a podcast or like book your own dates or whatever. And clean comedy is coming back in style, I've heard, because the New York Times says that. So he's like a clean comedian. So like everything's changing, thankfully. But he eventually came back and didn't want me to. We almost broke up multiple times because I wanted to be Orthodox and he didn't. But now it's like, it's much better.
Yeah. How many kids do you have?
3.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
6, 4, and 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I just have one almost 4-year-old.
Oh,
I was laughing when you're talking about sleep because I'm like, well, I wish she would learn about sleeping steadily through the night.
Yeah, some kids wake up in the night. Mine have trouble going to bed, and once they're asleep, like they'll sleep in. Like I'm very glad I didn't have like a kid who rises at 5 a.m. and wakes me up. But I think it's genetic because I stay up till like 2 a.m. So like my kids could go till 12 and be okay, and I'm like, come on, just go to bed. You gotta do the sleep training, I think. I don't know. I feel like that or melatonin.
Yeah, I don't know. I've tried I'm turning to God now because she has, like, I get it. I'm the same way. So it does, like you said, it feels genetic. I had the hardest time sleeping when I was a kid. She says things to me that I'm like, oh God, I'm so sorry. You got my genetic like disdain for sleep, where I was like, I'm always like, how have we not evolved out of this yet? Like, why? I was never one of those people that was like, I love sleeping. Sleeping is like we're like, sleeping is your personality. I just hated it. And sleeping is so great. I get 9. I'm like, I never liked it. I remember being a kid staring at my ceiling, and and my daughter will be like, I just, my brain just wants to play. And I'm like, oh, I get it. I'm like, you got to sleep. It's good. Restoration. But when I hear her talking, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I think you got my...
Dude, all the tips you find on Google don't work. It's like a soothing bath and a story.
Oh my God, it's all like, bullshit. No, all of it. No. It's like she'll take a soothing bath and then be running around screaming, just like playing. It's so funny. Like the mothering, the mommy. I'm so resistant to like the mommy world, the mommy wars or whatever, and giving advice. It's so kid dependent. Like every kid is so completely different, and nothing made me realize that more than having a kid and having my friends have kids at the same time, and their kids just like slept, and she just really it was like I was like, oh, there are some kids that are like easy, and other babies are not easy. And I got a baby that I guess is one of the more challenging kinds. And my Jewish friend was like, oh, she's high maintenance. She's going to have a great life. And I was like, actually, that's really so true. Different.
I mean, it's so different for everyone. And then like when you turn to Google, you just feel like crap. Like I remember with my first child, my daughter, she would not, I did all the things that Google said, wrap her up in the, what's it called? Oh my gosh.
When you like
wrap them up. Oh gosh. When you have a kid for the first time and you're like, you should swaddle them, you have to call the nurse every 2 seconds. You're like, she's out of the swaddle. I learned to like get the zip up swaddle. But even then, they don't like that. So I called my sister who's a doula. She's like, just sleep with her. Like, make sure there's nothing around. Kick your husband out of the bed for a little bit and make sure she's okay, can't roll off, and sleep with her. And I was like, but this articles on co-sleeping are like, you're going to kill your baby, God forbid, or whatever. And she's like, if you're drunk or high, yeah. But you're a
Yeah.
mother,
They're like
and now you have
obese.
this thing. Yeah, and you have this thing where like you have the mommy, like my husband doesn't hear the kids. I hear them. Like moms hear it. It's an instinctual thing. And I'm like, if all these countries around the world do it, and we've been doing this for thousands of years, maybe babies want to be held. And there's like the backlash to the cry it out movement. And I let my kids cry it out for like 10 minutes. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I got to go in. There's something wrong. But it's the same thing. Like, because of lawsuits and everything, like we became so like rigid and we're like, you can't do this or this or this. And the cars like, okay, follow the rules. But like, there's also things where it's like, they tell you something and you have to see it from like a legal perspective, like the co-sleeping or whatever, or, vaccine. Like I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I just don't give them every single thing they tell me to. Like from when I had my first child to now, they've gone from just telling me to get the flu shot to getting the RSV, the flu, the COVID. And I'm like, no, I'm okay.
Yeah.
So we also have to just trust our guts and trust like moms to make those decisions. And yeah, but again, like it's such a contentious thing that I never tell anyone what to do. I'm just like, I look to moms for guidance. And then I do find that like following other moms on like Instagram and stuff, the ones that I like do give me guidance, and they mostly confirm what I'm feeling. Like there's a very funny one going around where there's like a mom sitting there and she goes, like in the blink of an eye, it's over. And she's like blinking like over and over. I'm just like, some days feel like that. The days can be very long. But yeah, you have to find your mentors and your people in this space and doctors you trust and everything, and like go with what they said and go with your gut,
Yeah, it's tough too. Like I still think I sleep better when I sleep with her. Like she still wants like mommy to be around, and she'll come in and be like, mommy, can you come put me back when she wakes up? I'm like, oh my God, I thought. And I'm like, I actually get it too, because when I don't, like we sleep in separate bedrooms, but I'm like, why do you want mommy here? And she'll be like, because I'm a toddler. I'm like, that's like a fair, like, it's not an irrational explanation. She's like, I'm a toddler and I get scared in my room alone. I'm like, I don't sleep alone. Like, I get it. I don't know why I'm expecting you to do it at 3 years old.
And that's a great thing you're saying funny too. A lot of kids, like with, in Arrested Development, they go to school and they're like, children are to be neither seen nor heard. It's like, so funny. I felt like that was like kind of my generation. Like we were all ignored and whatever. And like, no, you're just a kid. Or in Matilda, when Danny DeVito's like, I'm big, you're tall, I'm right, you're wrong. And what you're saying is the opposite. Like, yeah, you take your kids seriously. Like they're little humans with little needs, and you don't just discount them because they're kids. Like they're smarter than we think. And I do believe they have like recycled souls. Like I named one of my children after my husband's grandma, and she says the funniest stuff. Like she was ragging on my husband's friend and saying like, you're a boy, you're not a boy because you have a purse. And I'm just like, how'd you come up with that? You're so funny. Like,
yeah.
I love kids. They are the best. And like being
they
a mom
do say the
like,
funniest shit. She came to get her hair done with me, and my hairdresser is gay. And then when we went home and she knows nothing about this, by the way. She just was like experiencing getting the hair done and whatever. And my husband's like, oh, did you have fun with the hairdresser? And what is he like? And she was like, well, he has a boy name, but he's like a girl. I was like, he has wasn't
so
dressed like a
yeah,
girl or anything. It was just what she picked up. And I was laughing so hard. I was like, that's my hairdresser and I still die laughing about it. He has a
it's
boy
so
name, but he's like
funny.
a girl.
That's so yeah. The same daughter who's hilarious did that. Like the gay guy, he was just like evaluating our home or whatever, like regional center stuff. So um, he's like from West Hollywood and wearing necklace and bracelet, and she's like, "Why are you wearing that? You're not a girl." And he's like, "I like it." And then my other daughter goes, "That's rude. Stop it. Don't say that to him." I'm like, it's a gay boy for a necklace. So kids are just so funny. And it's like the number one, I mean, marriage and children are like, they force you to grow and like just go against, selfishness. Like you cannot be selfish. When your kid is crying and in the middle of the night or they're sick or whatever, you can't just lay there. Like you have to go and override that thing in you that says like, I'm just going to like lay here. And you grow just so much from it. Like, I love it. It's the
I
best
think like
experience.
really caring for the elderly is like that too. And we've really just
Yeah.
outsourced that. And it's interesting to me, like a lot of the boomers in my life are just so resistant to being quote unquote like a burden. And I say to them, I'm like, well, maybe we don't see it that way. Maybe you're robbing us of the ability to be of service. And I understand what they're saying. They often, I mean, they saw their parents kind of deteriorate, and they know more about what that actually looks like. And but I'm like, you guys have this like really weird dichotomous thinking where you're like, don't ever put me in a home, but also I don't want to be a burden and I don't want you to take care of me. I'm like, so where what does that leave? Like, what option does that leave? So you better have enough money for a private, separate home and a nurse. Like what?
Yeah.
It's a funny
Yeah. I mean,
dichotomy to experience, and even just watching a lot of the aging parents in my life and having a toddler and aging parents who are dealing with health stuff, and I love like cooking for them and making sure they have food and making sure that they're cared for. And it is, even if it is something that like, I don't know, it's just kind of endlessly humbling. It is like that. Like having a kid is very humbling. I'm like nothing professionally will ever come close to making me feel as much of a failure as I often feel at bedtime, like trying to get my kids to sleep. And then I go online, and this is where the internet is actually glorious and great. Is those like my husband and I will just share those like Instagram memes where it's like, me after I come out, like get my kids to
yeah.
bed or whatever. And that is, I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm not alone in this. I have this vision that parents are like, do, 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 do. And they're just like reading now that I have AI, which I actually think is good for things like this, I wish that I could make a video of what I thought my early newborn time was going to be like with my daughter at night versus the reality of what it was. Like I was like, oh, it's going to be lavender massages and cute baths and she's just going to go right to sleep. And it was me on a like ball bouncing for 3 hours, holding her in positions that are impossible, just trying to get her to sleep. I mean, not what I had in my mind. And that was the really beginning of recognizing just like how humbling on both ends, coming into the world and going kind of entering the elderly, I guess your twilight years, how humbling being able to serve both of those those populations, like they're very needy and in ways that I find rewarding though. It's
Yeah.
humbling. It's like ever humbling.
Like one of the number one things in Judaism is to treat your fellow man with respect, and that means respecting your parents. And that's a beautiful mitzvah that you're doing. A mitzvah is used colloquially and then actually, so it's both. The mitzvah doesn't mean like, oh, do a good deed. It's a mitzvah to have a bark mitzvah for your dog. No, that's not a mitzvah. Colloquially, sure, but like it is a commandment to respect your parents, and I think that's a beautiful thing. Going back to the parenting thing, one of the funniest things is the breastfeeding part, where you think it's just going to be all sweet and nice and gorgeous. Like, I couldn't do it. It's not natural at all. The baby doesn't know how to do it. You're in absolute pain. And then like they sent me to like an 80-year-old woman who was like, take out your breast and we're going to do this. And like, she's like, no, you need to do this and this. And it's just it's a full-time job. So humbling.
Full-time job.
Full-time job. And yeah, you really start to see like, okay, maybe this is why, moms didn't go to work because it's like going to work. Like, I've always worked at home basically, especially after I had a kid. I was like, I can't go to an office. Like, if you watch a show like Working Moms, like that was like awesome because you just see the mom and she's like going to work with like full breasts and like coming home and rushing home to empty them. And it's just like such a struggle. And it's like, I fully believe in the working mom thing. I don't like the trad wife thing. I think that's a weird fetish. But yeah, you like really step into those gender roles when you have kids, and like in the middle of the night, like both my girls are daddy's girls during the day, but in the middle of the night, who do they scream? Mommy! Like never once has one of my children gone, Daddy,
Yeah, it is funny. She comes in and she just like points. Like it'll be like those like suddenly she'll just appear and be like pointing at me like a horror film.
I saw a meme recently about that. It's like in the middle of the night you wake up and you see this shadow and you're just like, oh, like that's happened so many times to me. Like it's like The Ring, like their hair is all like in front of their face.
Totally. And I'm like, why do they always have their head down and they're pointing?
Oh, the worst is I peed. I'm like, no, it's like 3 a.m.
Oh, it's 3. What do you hope readers feel when they finish your book?
So I have different things. Like, one, I hope that Jews who are born Jewish like feel proud to be Jewish and like want to get more involved. I think it's important to be out there like fighting on social media and having rallies and things like that. But I think you need that like kind of real world stuff, and then you also need like the spirituality, like also go to synagogue on Shabbat, also pray, also strengthen your relationship with God. And if, I hope people learn more about Jews, learn more about Orthodox Jews. We're not all just like from Netflix, like unorthodox, shaving our heads and dipping in the lake and, throwing our wigs off and all this stuff. Like there's so much misinformation. And then for people who have struggled with their relationship with God, just to like see another perspective, maybe start trying to believe in God again. And I just really feel like we need to bring back God, and it's the light will cast out the darkness. You can't cast it out with more darkness.
Mm-hmm. This is always the like challenge with dumpster fire when we do it. I'm like, how do we bring light to this insanely dark situation that we're talking about? If someone feels called to faith but fears the cost, what would you tell them?
The cost in terms of what?
Like if they feel called to faith but they fear the cost of like the time, the effort, the restraint that you talk about, the whatever, the inconvenience as we discussed.
I think
you probably wouldn't even see it as a cost.
As you said, start with the small habits. Do what feels like, do the easier things and then work your way up. Like for me, an easier thing was to start keeping kosher because I learned that like non-kosher animals, the way, like I have a bunch of animals, chickens, dogs, tortoise. I learned that the way that non-kosher animals was slaughtered was pretty horrifying. Whereas with, chickens and cows, they're slaughtered instantly. They can't see another animal being slaughtered. If they don't die instantly, it's not kosher. It has to be as painless as possible. So that was easy for me to start keeping kosher. So just like do the little habits, and you have to really find your place in your community. Like we couldn't find it in New York. We found it in Los Angeles, in our beautiful community. That's like a huge part of Judaism that we didn't even get into. That like number one was the, believing in God, and then also the Torah I thought was the truth. Number two is community. Like that's why I urge people, even if you're not Jewish or not religious, like go and find like a church or whatever you call it, and find a community that's just like good and is there for you. We have lost that. Like the suburbs made us all spread out, and then like the internet and COVID further compounded that, and we're all so lonely and losing our social skills. Like just for example, in the Orthodox community, it's the best because when you have a baby, you have meals for a month. You have strangers sending you food. God forbid you get sick, they visit you in the hospital. For our wedding, we couldn't afford so many things. Like, and someone from our synagogue is like, "Oh, I'll be your bartender for free," or you can rent the chuppah, which is what you get married under. Some people spend thousands of dollars on it with fresh flowers, and we couldn't afford it. So we paid like $100 to the place where they lend it out, and we got our chuppah, and you can rent a dress, and like so many things are taken care of for you. And when we first moved to LA, it's so sprawling, and if you don't find your community, you just feel depressed and you probably end up leaving. Like wherever you go, find that community and like be on the same page as people in that community, and be surrounded by people who are doing good, have good influences. Like in college, I was surrounded by people who would say like, "Oh, let's go steal from a store because, it's a corporation and they don't need the money and you're actually doing good." And so I would give in. I'd be like, "Yeah, that makes total sense." But now that I'm surrounded by people who don't do that and do the opposite, they're just constantly giving. It's like, I want to be like that, Like there's so many women here who have like 10 kids. Like I wouldn't do that. But like they have 10 kids and they're making meals for 30 people every week. And they're just like constantly doing kindness. Just like in Judaism, when the high holidays come around, we're supposed to ask for forgiveness. And we don't ask God for forgiveness first. We ask our fellow man, because that's what it's all about. It's all the number one rule of the Torah is to treat your fellow man with respect. And God created us so that we would have an authentic relationship with him, and that, everyone around us is God's creation, and we have to treat each other with respect, kindness, love, and give to each other. That's the number one thing. Just always think about how you can give. So, if you want to get involved in religion, or faith or anything, find a community that is good, that you can join, start doing the little habits and building it up, and find what works for you.
As someone who has converted to Judaism, do you feel like you are, I don't even know how to phrase this, like as Jewish? Like, do they make you feel separate because you're not like a blood, your mom wasn't Jewish, or does it feel, how does that feel?
No, there's actual like commandments that you have to welcome in the stranger, welcome in the convert. Our Messiah, we don't believe the Messiah came yet, whereas Christians do. We don't believe our Messiah came yet. He's descended from a convert, Ruth. She had her mother Naomi. Ruth's husband died, and she didn't want to leave her mother-in-law Naomi behind. So she basically converted to Judaism, and as you said, like serving your elders, like that's exactly what Ruth did. King David was her descendant, and then the Messiah comes from King David. So we have so much reverence for converts, and we believe that every Jewish soul was on Sinai. You talked about like, I hear this from converts all the time, and I experienced it. When I went to the Holocaust Museum for the first time, I was crying uncontrollably. I had nightmares for years about it. And converts always say this, like when they encounter Judaism, it's as if their soul is like lit up, and that's the recycled souls thing, because we believe that all Jewish souls were on Sinai when we received the Torah from God, and that the soul travels through the generations to get to you. Sometimes it's more obvious, like you'll do your DNA test, and like mine came up like 0.08% Ashkenazi Jew, so maybe that's something. And sometimes it's not so obvious. There were a lot of conversos from Spain who were forced to convert to Christianity or Catholicism. there was, I think it was Christopher Hitchens. He was the big atheist, right? And his
Yeah.
mom, he learned on the deathbed he was a Jew. There's so many cases of that. And my favorite is there was a far right Hungarian politician, basically a Nazi. He found out his mom had converted and was actually a Jew, and now he's like this big like Orthodox Jew. Like that is
Wow.
just like it's incredible. Um, so yeah, we give extra special reverence to converts and also like widows and poor people, and like that's like the needy is like a really big part of Judaism, and it's all about like giving, and not just to Jews. Like when some like the Haiti earthquake happened, Israel's like the first country there like to help out or whatever. Like we're all about giving because we're all in the image of God. So no, I've never been discriminated against, even though all the bots on X are like, "Oh, you're a second class citizen and they hate you." I'm just like, okay, well, you're a Pakistani bot and you don't even know what you're saying. So like, I'm just going to go ahead and ignore you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So converts are like put on an extra pedestal.
What is your biggest defect of character?
Wow. I like going back into my anxious mode, I'd say. Like the times when I forget that God is right here, and like I've been really working on that lately. It's been a challenging year. I think it's been a challenging year for everyone. It's just like in the air for some reason,
Yeah.
like things are just like off. And some Jews say, "Oh, it's because the Messiah is coming." Well, I that's a nice idea. Yes, we do always believe the Messiah is coming, but again, like you can't guarantee that that's what's happening or whatever. So just always believing that whatever happens is for the best. And in those times, like not be anxious. But I still, there's an animal soul and there's a godly soul. And I often have been going back to my animal soul. And like, that's like the woo woo would be like abundance mentality, would be like the godly mode. And
Right.
I'm reading this book by Gabby Bernstein, or I'm listening to it because she has a nice voice, called like The Universe Has Your Back. And last week I said out loud, I feel like the universe effing hates me right now. Like that's
Yeah.
my book, like right now. But yeah, just like trying not like having my moments of like, I never doubt that God exists, but just like, God, why are you mad at me? Like, what did I do? And just being like, no, like I just have to have faith. Like it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. So, yeah, I never
Yeah,
want
it's
to
so
go back
hard.
to
It's
like,
hard for me to
yeah.
like. Sorry, go on.
No, I just never want to go back to my old self. And that's like when I converted, I chose a Hebrew name that meant Danny's like, you have to do like a new name, a new you, your name. Like Judaism believes that the name is so powerful. And like even when a person is sick, you change your name because you want a different mazal, you want a different luck, a different outcome. So Danny's like, you have to choose a name that means like happiness. So our friend gave me the name Ora, which means light, and then I chose Ronit because it meant like happy, joyous singer. And yeah, I just never want to go back to that. What were you saying?
Oh, it's just so hard because you're like, well, the people who it didn't work out for are dead. And you're like,
It's
that's
yeah.
like my like brain, the analytic part of me is like, yeah, it's all working out for you. And like the people who are saying that are here and and perhaps it's working out for them. There are lots of people who probably believe that and are no longer with us either. And that is always where I get like, it's like the bottleneck for me when I get jammed
Yep.
up with spirituality.
It's the bottleneck for everyone, and all I say is like I don't know the bigger picture. For
Yep.
Jews, October 7th, when the Bebus boys, who was the little redheaded boys who were captured, they didn't come home alive. I mean, that day was just like the worst day ever. And I'm just like, why? And I just say like, hopefully when I go to heaven, I'll have an answer for that. Not heaven, but like the afterlife or whatever it is. Hopefully I'll have an answer for that. It's just like faith and trust without having all the answers. If we had all the answers, if people are like, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, okay, what if you did bad and bad happened? Or what if you did good and good happened? Then you would not have an authentic relationship with God. That's a slave master situation. You have to do good even when it might not turn out good. And that's it.
Yeah.
It's a really hard, it's a really deep concept that we all we all have our moments. I'm not going to be like, yeah, I think it's like Pollyannish to be like, oh, it's all for the best. It's all for the best. No, there's actual pain that happens and horrible things. And I just like try to learn more about it when I feel it. And you can totally feel angry at God. You can totally be like, what the hell? Like, why were these kids killed?
Yeah.
And then like at the end, like I've seen people go through the worst stuff and they're always have like so much faith. And I'm just like, how? And it's like, because if you don't, you die. I mean, I just really feel that. You just like these Holocaust survivors, they lived, my husband's grandma lived to like 100. She was so resilient. All this bad stuff happened to her, but like she still believed in God. And I'm like, I look to her, I'm like, if you can, then I can,
That's like my friend. He's in LA and he's a Holocaust survivor and he's 90, almost 98.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like that level of resilience. And what's insane is that you're living with all of that. Like, it's just a long life of living with all of that stuff that you saw and experienced. And like, you would think most people would be like, get me out of here. I don't want this. Like, I don't want to have to carry this anymore. And they just keep carrying it.
It's that they went through that they're able to brush off someone cutting them off in traffic or something. I think like all this cultural stuff comes up in terms of fighting like politically because we're bored and we haven't gone through anything. Americans have such a cushy life and they're just like, what problems can I bring up? It's like, if you had to go and fight in a war, you wouldn't be like this, because you'd be like, well, I've seen what actually bad life looks like, what's happening in Iran. I have so many Persian Jewish friends. They're the sweetest people. I love them. And look at what happens. You go over there and, you go out without the head covering and they kill you. Okay. Well, in America, you can do whatever you want. Like, of course there's problems, but nowhere near on that level. Like, we're the greatest country ever to exist for that very reason, because we have so much freedom. Stop inventing problems and like, you're just bored. It really bothers me.
Yeah.
Like, stop fighting on social media. I love, one of my favorite segments was Bill Maher said, like, you have to take Facebook away from the boomers because all they do is fight. Like, all grandma does all day is fight on Facebook. I'm just like, what are you doing with your life? Like, there's bigger things, and don't get wrapped up in that. Like, the people who go through this trauma, like, whenever I have problems, I say, Malala got half her face shot off and she's a best-selling author. She's on TV all the time. I can do this, like, come on.
Like, come on. Chin up. What's your biggest asset?
I think, that I, like you, I also love people. And I don't divide people into camps, which is what people do nowadays. Like, I have friends, I like go all over the political spectrum depending on the issue. And I have friends who are on liberal. I have friends who are leftist and anti-Israel who I completely disagree with. They're still my friends. I have friends who are hardcore Republicans. I disagree with them on some things. We're still friends. Like, just like seeing the godliness in everyone and loving people. I'm really interested in people and what makes them tick, and just like learning about different people. I'm open-minded, not to the point where my brain falls out, as they say, but I really just love talking to people and learning their stories.
Yeah, me too. Where can we find you?
Social media, Kylie Ora Writer on Instagram, Kylie Ora Lobell on X, that lovely toxic spewing platform, but I'm still there. YouTube.
Oh, we're so addicted to it. And Elon knew that. Elon knew.
It's insane, but I'm still on there for now. So you can find me. Just Google me. I'm there.
Okay. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I really appreciated it.
And thanks for writing your book.
Thank you. Go pick it up.
Go get it. Yeah, where can people get your book?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Anywhere.
Just anywhere.
This has been Walk-Ins Welcome with Bridget Phetasy. I'm Bridget Phetasy, and you're welcome. It's the dumbest line.